Coming to you, undead from the crypt. This is Adelaide Horror Podcast with Zombie Joe.
Too alarming now to talk about. Take those pictures down, check it out. Truth or consequence, kudos my hero, leaving all the mess. You know my hero, one that's all. There goes my hero, watch him as he goes. There goes my hero, watch him as he goes.
Welcome to the Adelaide Horror Podcast. This is your host, Zombie Joe. Tonight's episode is number 28, and it is Muscian Horror. And I'm going to be talking about 2022's Foo Fighter horror special, Studio 666. So the Muso episode has been a long time coming. I wanted to do this quite a while back because of just the different rock musicians that have done cameos in horror films. Since the early 80s into the 90s, and then there was a kind of a resurgence in the 2000s, but not with rock stars, with rap stars, and the change in the music industry and how these stars then started making cameos in horror films like their rock star counterparts in the 80s. So that kind of interested me, how that trend was kind of going back then, and I wanted to do an episode, and I kind of held off, and other things kind of took its place, and then suddenly Studio 666 came up, and I was like, wowee, that's awesome. This is the one that I'm going to review for sure, and fits in perfectly with what I wanted to do. So that's why it gets a Guernsey. I was very excited when I first heard the news about Studio 666 when it came out, because it had never really been done. Like, band members have done cameos in films, or they've played themselves in a film or whatever, but they haven't represented the whole band. You know, it hasn't turned up. And Kane Poise today is would be Kerry King from Slayer, does a cameo in this movie, but it's not Slayer in this movie, you know, and so that's kind of what I mean. That's kind of how all these movies have been. It's the musician has done a cameo or has played a character all themselves, but the whole band wasn't involved, and it wasn't in a location fighting off an entity, and it didn't affect them directly. So this is where the Foo Fighters have kind of done something extremely unique and one-off, and that's why it got my interest, and hence why we're doing the episode tonight. So, speaking of the cameos, I kind of jotted down all the different ones. Now, off the top of my head, I can remember Deborah Harry from Videodrome. I can remember David Bowie from The Hunger. And I can remember Dee Snider from Strangelands. These are the three. The thing. Alice Cooper is hands down my favourite cameos out of the thing. So he plays Freddy Krueger's dad in Freddy's Dead. And he plays the memorable role of the satanic kind of possessed hobo in The Prince of Darkness. And just that line, you know, Jesus wept. Like, just the way he says it and he delivers in this scene I still remember it, like it still sticks to me now. Like, and I'm just like, wow, that was just so good. And for me, that's my personal favorite cameo out of the horror kind of lineup out of all these years. Alice Cooper kind of wins that one, hands down. The other kind of icons as well that I came up with and jotted these down. You got Iggy Pop in The Dead Don't Die. Ozzy Osbourne, it was the preacher in Trick or Treat, and that was cool to learn. Lemmy, I forgot about this one, and then while researching, it reminded me. In Newcomb High, he plays the president. I thought that was funny. Rob Zombie. So he plays the voice of Dr. Carl in not Dr. Carl, our beloved Dr. Carl from Triple J, but he plays Dr. Carl's voice in Slither. And Danny Filth from Cradle of Filth plays the Slayer's vessel in the Cradle of Fear. I haven't seen that one, so I've jotted it down here, and I've reminded myself to check it out later. And Tom Waits as well in Dracula, Bram Stoker's Dracula. He plays the familiar that Dracula befriends, that's in the tower and is eating all the bugs and stuff, and assists Dracula in his quest. Then you've got the more modern adaptate, like the rappers that started. Now you've got Ice-T in Leprechaun in the Hood. That was good. You've got Aaliyah from Queen of the Damned, the really good Anne Rice vampire. And then you have Busta Rhymes in Halloween Resurrection. Please check that one out, because this is literally the horror equivalent of Samuel Jackson on Snakes on a Plane. Because like, the famous line of "there's too many MFs on this MF plane," like is pretty much, it's Busta Rhymes the whole time being chased by Mike Myers, and he's like, "Yo, fuck, yo, motherfucker!" Like this whole time through the whole movie. That's all I remember, and him just overacting, and it's the overacting that's to the point where it doesn't piss you off. It makes you laugh. Like, and it's he's probably serious about his acting, but apart from that, it was absolutely hilarious. And so it was quite good in that sense. So these are the cameos. This is kind of what I'm talking about. You know, with Studio 666, you got Kerry King doing a cameo from Slayer, and he plays the roadie. So he's not really playing himself from Slayer. He's playing a roadie called Krieg. Krieg. Oh, Krug, sorry. And I thought that was cool, like the nod to Freddy Krueger in that one. And there's some funny bits where he's kind of like adjusting David Grohl's drum set, and like and it's comedic. He goes, a little bit, an inch to the left, you know. And Kerry's looking at him going, "I'm gonna punch you in the fucking head." Like it's just and then he bangs the drum like right near his face, and Kerry's like, "Oh." And it kind of reminds me of, you know, when you used to like help your dad or do any kind of yard work or whatever when you were a kid, and someone was banging the hammer, and you always kind of flinched every time they banged the hammer. That's kind of what it reminded me of. So that was quite funny to watch that. John Carpenter as well does the surprise kind of cameo in this one, and there's a really great bit, and I'll add the link to the in the show notes of the actual song in the Foo Fighters that features in this song, and it features in the menu music, and it's the metal song that they produce, and it's the Possessed one that David Grohl has to finish in the film. Let's get into the basics and the nitty gritty of the film now. So directed by B.J. McDowell. Now McDonald, sorry. He also directed another music kind of narrative piece for Slayer, and that was Slayer's Repentless Killology film. I haven't checked that one out, so I definitely have written that one down for me to look at. I'm very keen to check that one out. That looks really, the writers. Now, David Grohl wrote the story to this, but he was backed up with two screenplay writers. One is a comedic screenplay writer, and her name is Rebecca Hughes. And so she's done Cat Cracking Up and Grounded for Life is the two shows that she's familiar with. I had to check those notes because I have not seen both of those shows, so I'm not 100% how they sit or how funny they are kind of thing. And so because some of the jokes don't land in this one. Like, it's funny, but it's not really, you're side-splitting, pissing yourself laughing. And so some of the dialogue I found kind of felt a little bit short. That's the only nitpicky thing that I really have to say about it. But the physical comedy was there for sure. So the physical comedy and the gore pretty much filled in all the gaps where these kind of... someone said a lot of inside jokes, and I kind of agree with that. There was kind of inside kind of funny stuff in there. So some of the dialogue kind of fell short for me. And so I don't know really if she's responsible for that side of it. But if you look at Jeff Buhler, it almost is like Buhler. So it's spelled Buhler. The screenplays and him writing for such movies as The Midnight Meat Train. He's done the screenplay for Pet Sematary 2019. He's done The Grudge from 2020. And he's also the writer for some of the shorts on ABCs of Death. So this guy, the screenwriting for this horror side of it, you could tell where his traces were through this film. Rebecca, you could see where the humor was in this one here. The gross to make this movie, because there's no actual price for how much it cost to make. And let's face it, the Foo Fighters make that much money, so this is kind of like a fucking student indie film for them. The gross money that they made back was $2,999,000. We'll flip that upside down. 666. I was just like, wow, okay, that's not creepy at all. Love that in my bank account. I don't care how, like, that'd be awesome. But yeah, that's what they made worldwide on this. And partly, look, it was right in the middle of the Rona. So it's, I'm not surprised it didn't, kick massive, like, financial goals there. But, it is what it is. And it got released out, and a lot of people bought it on rental. So a lot of that would have been people buying it on streaming services and stuff like that, or buying their physical copy when it came out. Recently, so yeah, IMDb kind of kicked it in the balls. They gave it a 5 out of 10, and some reviews were alright. A lot of people went to fucking market on this film, and that pisses me off because I'm like, well, you've missed the point of what this whole entire film was supposed to be. Like, and anyway, is what it is. The Adelaide Horror podcast score for this one was 8 out of 10 because I realised what it was trying to do and I saw the humour of what it was trying to do. But at the same time, there was a few things that, I had to knock a point off here and there for certain things. And so 8 out of 10 is the thing. But still, if someone's very weak in the stomach, then yeah, I wouldn't do this one. The runtime for this is 1 hour and 46 minutes, including credits. And it's rated R. So there you go, because of the gore and the blood content in this. So we'll go into the cast now. Now the cast is the Foo Fighters featuring themselves. So David Grohl, Nate Mendel, Pat Smear, Taylor Hawkins, the late Taylor Hawkins, rest in peace, Rami Jaffe, and Chris Shiflett. Make up the Foo Fighters. They're they start their first appearance about 4 minutes into the film, and the start of the actual film we see Jenna Ortega final girl situation where she's been attacked by another band member off screen rather violently. She's got a pretty decent compound fracture going on her thigh. And she's struggling, and it's dragging blood through the house as she's crawling to get away from whoever it is. But she knows who the killer is. So, yes, like a very violent murder she wrote at the start is how I could look at it. Anyway, and it probably was like a Jessica Lansbury standing over her too with a hammer. But anyway, we won't get into that conspiracy theory. The other actor mentions Whitney Cummins, who plays Samantha, who is the neighbour. In this, you'd know her from Two Broke Girls and she's a stand-up comic. Jeff Garlin, you know him as Jeremy Schill in the film. He plays the fictional Foo Fighters manager in this one. You'd know him from the Goldbergs, Curb Your Enthusiasm, and he's also a stand-up comic as well. Leslie Grossman is Barb Wilms, and she plays the kind of the real estate agent or sidekick to Mr. Shrill, the manager. And you'd know her from American Horror Story. She's done a few roles, reprising roles for the American Horror Story kind of franchise. Then you've got Marty Matalius, Matalius. I'm assuming that's how you pronounce it, but it probably isn't, so apologies. He plays the caretaker of the Encino Mansion, and we get his backstory in there. He's done a lot of kind of creepy creature cameos in other TV shows as Evil, Grim, and also the Piggy Man in American Horror. Then you got Jenna Ortega plays Sky Willow. You know her recently from the movie X. You know her from the recent Scream. You know her from Babysitters 2. And you would know her, I think Killer Queen is what it's called. Babysitters 2 Killer Queen. It was on Netflix. And then Yes Day. So Yes Day was 2019. It's a fluffy Disney-like family movie. And then 2020 onwards, she's just gone full horror, final girl, scream queen kind of role, and has gone into it hard. So her performances are really good. Like, she can either play a really damsel in distress and gets murdered victim, or she can go and play the kind of hard-nosed, surviving, vulnerable girl at the same time. So she does the two roles quite well, and yet to see X, still want to see it. So you can see the trend between 2020 and now, the change. So I don't know whether that's the agent tapping her on the shoulder going, you got to lose the Disney shit, or she's kind of going, you know what, I've got to lose the Disney shit. And she's gone to the agent and said, hey, get me into some more horror movies or action movies or whatever, but just get me out of this. Jason Trust is Tros, is the tech in this film that works with John Carpenter. He appears in Hatchet 3. This is why research is important, because if you can just assume something like I did, I assumed that he was Cody Carpenter, because I haven't actually seen a picture of Cody Carpenter, and that's John Carpenter's kid. Now, Cody Carpenter is also into music, so I assumed that this was Cody Carpenter, and because he had an eye patch and long hair, he was kind of like, it was a nod to Snake Plissken from Escape from New York. And wow, could my assumption be any more fucking wrong? Like, when I did the research, I was like, wowee, lucky I didn't lay that haymaker down in the middle of the episode. Everyone would have been hitting the keyboard hard. You know, Zombie Joe. So, yeah. Kids, it's important to research and don't assume. Like, so that was quite funny. It made me chuckle, actually, when I realised what he actually, his real name and what he actually does. So there you go. William Ford is also in this one. You'd know him from MacGruber. Like I said, the cameos in this movie from other artists playing themselves in this one was quite good. So excluding Kerry King, who does play a character called Krug, you've got Lionel Richie. Now, the Lionel Richie, this one cracked me up, and then leads straight into a nightmare sequence. So it's funny how it's this left right hook kind of cameo, but it was so well done and very funny and very comedic how it was timed and how it got delivered. So yeah, definitely enjoyed it. I had a good laugh about it. And then afterwards was the extremely gory nightmare scene that kicks off afterwards, which I loved just as much. So that whole kind of 2-3 minutes that just happens right there is entertaining enough, which I thought was great. So, yeah. So let's get cracking into the film. So basically it opens up in 1993 in Encino. I'm not familiar, but I assumed that I was correct that it was a place in California. the drummer of the fictional band, like I said, is Ortega. She's trying to get away from a stalker that's off screen, and she's dragging her blood through the house. And like I said, she's got a pretty decent compound fracture, and she's dragging herself along. And she's like, "Why? We did everything you wanted." And then the hammer comes down and just caves her head in. Off screen, the flashes, how they've done it, like is really the whole sequence, the bludgeoning sequence, how they cut back to the gore of the bludgeoning and then back to, you know, this kind of credit sequence was so well done. And you see the tape spinning, and it was really, really good. And that sudden flash over to the other member that's bald, the musician member, and you see them later on in the film with their whole jaw smashed clean open. Oh, just phenomenal. So yeah, the special effects team on this movie fucking definitely deserve a standing ovation on this one, because they went above and beyond with the fake blood, the guts, the meat, the gore, the dismemberments, the disembowelments. It's fucking phenomenal, like how they did this. And really, really impressive. 4-minute mark, we get the Foo Fighters having a meeting with Mr. Shrill, the manager. He's going off because they're due for their 10th album and they haven't done it yet. And so they get together and they're like, look, he's like, I'll go book into any studio right now down in LA, whatever. Just get it done. Like, yeah, this is pissing me off. I've got people, I've got money that are due for everybody, and you haven't done this. And so Dave's like, look, we've been to all these places. It sounds the same. It's all crap. I want to do something different. And he references the Led Zeppelin album where they go into the country. So he said he's referencing to that. And so the Mr. Shrill, the manager's like, well, we do have a place that's like that. And so we get the Encino Mansion, and that's how we get introduced. And that's how we then get introduced to Grossman's character, the agent, Barb Weems, and she meets them at the place and tours them around. And while they're touring around, Grohl kind of falls in love with one of the rooms where the murder at the start of the film is, because of the acoustics in this thing. And he goes, this is the place where we're going to set up and do the song. And we're kind of, you know, every time it does a clap, you know, we get that Exorcist edit where the face suddenly appears in the darkness, you know, screaming, rah, and then rah, like, and every time he claps. And I thought that was a pretty cool nod as well. There's a few nods to a lot of horror films in this one here. If you pay attention, you'll see them. Yeah, for sure. So anyway, they set up all the equipment, and this is when we get Krug or Kerry King kind of being the roadie, setting up all the stuff as well. And we see also Jason Frost and in the background setting up musical equipment as well. And this is where we get our first kind of accident that the house could have done this kind of thing, where it takes its first victim. So yeah, kind of kicks off from that. And then we meet the neighbor as well next door. So there's kind of a love interest that kind of starts off between her and Jaffe, and it's quite funny. And then yeah, we get that kind of funny dream sequence that night from David Grohl. And then we go, and while he's doing that, he kind of walks around the house and he gets to the basement, and this is when he discovers the recording tape and the recording equipment, the kind of 70s, 80s recording equipment. And he plays the tape, and this is kind of the nod to Evil Dead that I liked as well. And you've got the dismembered kind of raccoon on the wall, so, you know, a nod to any people that are a bit squeamish about animal deaths or, you know, sacrificial kind of mutilations for animals. So there's a bit of a heads up on that one. If you're triggered by that, there's a bit of a warning on that one. There's kind of a dismembered raccoon pinned to the wall, which is a part of the sacrificial kind of thing that they've done. And yeah, the whole thing of like fixing the tape and getting the tape started, and then the playing, and then releasing the spirit that then possesses David Grohl is very Evil Deadish. And I kind of dug that kind of nod to Evil Dead as well. So that was pretty good. And then he comes back up. He says he's found his kind of, this is the music. He plays the music to the band. The band liked the idea. But this is kind of where he starts, behavior-wise, he starts the change. It's not full-blown possessed Grohl, but it's you see traits like he's becoming more irritable when they can't get the note down properly. I'm not a musician, so when he was saying L sharp, the shit was going straight over my head. So, they're just saying, how do we play this note? And he's getting frustrated because he can do it, but the others physically can't do it, like, because it's on a, this dynamic, non-existent level that he's at. And so there's a time lapse. You see this kind of 3 weeks pass, and they're playing this song. Now, this particular song, and like I said, I'll do the link to it on Spotify, is the song that you play on Spotify. It's in Latin. The title's in Latin. There's no way I can even fucking attempt to pronounce how to say it, so I'm not going to do it. But just follow the link, get into Spotify, and it's a song that goes for 10 minutes and 20 seconds or something, and it is fantastic. So there's a time lapse where we see that they've practiced this song for 3 weeks, and they've got it. They're jamming, they're fucking doing really well. And this is where you get the kind of the John Carpenter cameo. He's upstairs on the soundboard. He's mixing it up. It's this massive jam session. And this is what splits the movie up a bit. So you got the comedy, the horror kind of stuff. Not so much horror at this point, but it shows you the inner workings of briefly how making a song would look like. Producing and creating and the struggles that a band like the Foo Fighters, when they sit down, they, to try and create a sound that we take advantage of because we're just sitting on our asses, and then an advertisement comes up and says, hey kids, this is the new song, and we just put it in our ears and switch off, as whether these guys have spent months, if not a year, trying to create that song that we instantly fall in love with. So that's kind of the appreciation I have with this film as well. Anyway, because it's been 3 weeks and they've done this song, the other members of the Foo Fighters are starting to get shitty because he wants to close it, but it's not good enough. And so he starts snapping, and this is kind of when the possession Grohl starts to come out a little bit more. At this point, at some stage, the neighbour meets up and kind of pulls the Foo Fighters aside and says, look, there's a bit of a history to this house. It's possessed by this situation. Something really bad happened here in the 90s, and talks about the cursed band and the original guy that was trying to make this band and did some satanic rituals and followed the Book of Crowley and kind of summoned all these demons, and this is kind of where it all... And so that's your info dump, and you get it within about an hour into this. So up until this, hour and 46-minute movie, you get all this kind of sprinkle. Once this is kind of unleashed and you've done the info dump, the next 40 minutes is just kind of Grohl going on a rampage at this point. And this is where you get all the real blood and gore and murders and everything is all... full on, and it's a ride. Like I tell you, it makes it more enjoyable too, because you can see the members had fun with this. Now look, these guys are musicians; they're not actors. Okay, they're not the greatest actors in the world. The funniest one is probably Pat Smear, who really just doesn't look like he knows what the fuck is going on most of the time. Like, and you're just laughing at it because he's just kind of, it's like you invited Grandpa to the party. But like, but it's okay. Like, if you kind of accept that, and you know that this is what these guys were doing, they were getting together and they were having fun. This is how I describe the movie to other people when they say, oh, did you see 666? What did you think of it? And I said, okay, guys, if you're going to watch this is goofy as fuck, and just look at this as it's basically Foo Fighters learning how to fly, the film clip, as a horror film. This is pretty much what it is. It's Grohl hamming it up. It's the other guys hamming it up, playing along with this horror film, because, hey, what else were they going to do while Corona was happening? Let's just have a bit of fun, throw our money together, and do a bit of a project. Anyway, together. Look, I'm gonna leave it here for that. You got to enjoy the gore. You're going to enjoy the laughs in this. It's goofy. At least it's not overacted. It's a good time. It's a good laugh. Man, this is get your mates together, beer and pizzas, talking shit, watching a horror film. That's exactly what this is. Big old popcorn, stuff your face, enjoy it, switch your mind off from everything else that's happening in the world at the moment, and just have a good laugh. It's some big old dumb fun. That's my advice on this one. So, cool. Anyway, thanks for listening. A little bit of crypt keeping as well. So it's been a month, so it's quite a lot of stuff has happened. Oz Comic Con went. So that was really, really cool. I got to meet Darren from Dark Oz, so I managed to get some of his comics as well. So that was pretty cool. I'm very chuffed about that. So I've got this massive backlog of horror comics to read. I have been a fan for quite a long time. So it was good to actually kind of, gather some courage and go up and approach him and have a chat. And I was really happy that I did. Sometimes the shyness is a bit too much for me, and I kind of struggle approaching an artist and saying, "How you going? I'm a fan." And that's kind of something I'm working on. So that was really good that I managed to kind of suck it up and get there and purchase and support that artist, which is fantastic as well. In the meantime as well, Scott came out with his book, Skullboy and the Leap of Faith. That finally came as well. So that was great. So definitely check out Scott Hewitt and his new book there as well. So that was great. Also, so we've got more episodes coming up soon. Got some more zombie bites on the way as well. I'm now on TikTok. So I'm trying to, Grandpa fucking Joe over here is trying to work TikTok out. Boy, wowee, I'm fucking old. Anyway, I'm trying to get it mixed into the thing, and I still refuse to say hip words. So I'm not going to be the aging hipster on TikTok. I refuse to do that. So I'm having fun anyway. So yeah, there you go. Cool. Anyway, so that's Studio 666 is a definite recommend for that one. You can do streaming services for this. This is pretty much being now shown on all the streaming channels to check this out, or you could go to JB Hi-Fi and buy the physical copy of it. So again, like I said, big old dumb goofy fun. Don't overthink it. It's fun and it's goofy. So check it out. Anyway, thanks for listening, and stay scary, and I'll see you in the crypt.
Adelaide Horror Podcast with Zombie Joe.